You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off, and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today's idea came from a conversation I was having with a client of mine that I feel is very applicable to all of you as well. You know, as a coach for 20-somethings, working with 20-somethings, kind of put two and two together, and that usually happens with a lot of these episode topics. And if you're listening to this, I do have client openings, and I would love to help you improve your adulting experience. The link to schedule a call with me is always going to be in the show notes for you guys to access right where it says, let's chat. This topic for today is basically when the stepping stones that are being laid out for you feel more frustrating than they feel forward moving. And truthfully, this is part an ego thing, part an expectation thing, and part a comparison thing. Whether it's a job that feels beneath your skill level, still living at your parents' for several years after graduating, even recovering from an injury when you want to be at 100% of your capabilities, but you're just not there yet. This feeling of not quite being where you want to be or where you thought you should be shows up in many different forms across many different aspects of your life. For my client in particular, she had to take the last year off of work for some health issues that shows pretty much no light at the end of the tunnel. We began working together because she wanted a plan for when she feels well enough to make money again. And she told me when she would search for jobs on her own, she would get overwhelmed, anxious, and discouraged. Common experience for anyone searching for a job in today's world. But then she gave an example that this requirement for this job says you just need to be at least 18 years of age. And here she is, sitting with a master's degree, an additional high-level certification, and several years of working experience. So for the requirement to be an age thing, not a degree thing or an expertise thing, taking this job would feel defeating because she is overqualified to do it, compared to someone with a high school diploma who graduated this year, for example. And what she was forgetting, and I helped coach her through, was the options we were pulling up were falling into different categories we had created together. A worst-case scenario, a best-case scenario, and an in-betweener. This part-time job with an age requirement that she passed by a little over a decade was to fall in the in-between scenario, where it would help give her some level of experience for the best-case scenario, but requires more for her in-person life than, say, a virtual call center position that fell into her worst-case scenario. And then we zoomed out. And I walked her through how each one of these scenarios fed into another. How a call center would help her make money, and it was something that she felt was still in line with her passion of helping people improve their experiences. The part-time job, as I already mentioned, would give her some healthcare-esque experience. The senior living center full-time job I showed her would be more passion and people-driven. And the Deloitte healthcare-related job would be the upper limit beyond her best-case scenario. It would be a job she would take if she didn't have any health problems, period, and could essentially pick her life up right where she left it last year. And that's obviously the direction we want to trend, while also meaning that accepting any of these other beneath her type jobs doesn't mean she's going backwards or is less than. It's simply part of the process she didn't know she was going to have to go on. That's the mix of ego and expectation. The comparison part was happening when she looks at what her peers are up to that she has had to put on the back burner of her life or even fully take a pause on. that everyone else is up to XYZ, and I'm lucky if I can make it through the day with no pain. So let's dive into how each of these three items, ego, expectation, and comparison, are getting in the way of your journey and your stepping stones, while reminding you that these stepping stones are not your forever, but they are your right now. First off, ego. This one is probably the most uncomfortable one to face because no one likes to admit that their ego is getting in the way. Sounding arrogant, ungrateful, that you're better than this, whatever this is, it's the lack between what you think you're capable of and what you're actually capable of in that moment. For example, let's say you break your leg and have to isolate it for 6 weeks in a cast or a boot. When you are free to walk around, you're not going to be able to walk, run, jump, lift, or do anything that you could do prior to breaking it, solely because all of those muscles have atrophied and been isolated in the last 6 weeks. It doesn't mean you'll never get back to what you were doing before, but it does mean you have to face your current reality that your body is telling you this is not possible right now. Your stepping stone is strengthening your ankle, getting movement back in your leg, walking slower, building up muscles in your calf. And with time and consistency, you'll be able to progress it a little further and a little further until you're at a place where you can run, jump, walk, and lift with no issues. You logically know that you need to take these steps to avoid hurting it again. But on a subconscious level, you're frustrated that you feel like you have to resort back to the basics, to a toddler learning how to walk and use their legs. And that is exactly what a stepping stone is. It is the rehabilitation process for whatever part of your life needs rebuilding right now. More specifically, your ego is disappointment in disguise. And when you're in your 20s, it's going to show up based on your hard work, getting the degree, putting in the time, and now what you've been presented with does not match up to the effort you gave. It's not always arrogance or you're too good for this out of cockiness. It's disappointment because there is a lag between what you expected and what you were given. And when ego is left unchecked, you'll reject the things that would otherwise help you move forward because you're convincing yourself it's best to hold off and wait for something that feels more worthy of, say, your resume, degree, or story. But what you fail to recognize is that the waiting game is doing nothing for you. That's what leads to the stuckness versus viewing a smaller opportunity as the forward projection to get you to where you want to be, even when you don't want to be where you're currently at. Which is why this episode is titled, This is Not Your Forever, It's Your For Now. This was my mental motto that I created back in 2020 when I was not where I thought I would be, when the world was disheveled and my life felt even more so. I had to keep reminding myself that this is temporary, that eventually I would be where I wanted to be. And it was followed with the song Vacation that goes, "Ay, ay, ay, I'm on vacation every single day because I love my occupation." Don't worry, guys. I won't be quitting my day job to be a singer. But those lyrics, they really spoke to me. It was when I had just got my personal training certification. I wanted to do it full time, but was forced back to the corporate world. I just kept saying to myself, one day, I will feel like I'm on vacation because I love the work I'm doing so much. And here I am, doing just that. I don't feel like I'm on vacation on a beach somewhere, but I am happy as I would be on a vacation. That's not to say I didn't have more trials and tribulations along the way, the feelings of impatience, the wanting to be there already instead of where I am right now, and also not to mention the expectations that I did not achieve. Which brings me to the second part of allowing yourself to take the stepping stones. When you set an expectation, you are trapping yourself into an outcome that must happen, otherwise you're a failure. And these expectations come from anywhere and everywhere. It's your parents telling you what your future would look like. It's watching people older than you follow a similar path as each other, so you expect yourself to do the same. It's from a plan you created at some point when you set a goal, whether intentional or not. Regardless of the source, you built a picture in your head of where you would be what you would be doing and what your life would look like by the time you turn 22, 25, 28, 30, and anywhere in between. The job you would be working, the city you would be living in, the quality of life you'd have. I think we are all guilty of saying at 10 years old that by the time I'm 27, I'll be married with my first kid. And then you turn 27 and you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? I'm still a kid. How could I have one of my own? This is no hate to anyone that has kids in their 20s. This is just my own realization and is a very common one amongst my peers. That being said, I like to joke about my 5-year plan all the time because the 5-year plan for what I had in my mind after school was dead wrong 3 months after graduation when I thought I'd be living in Atlanta and accepted a position in the outskirts of Orlando, Florida. And that's the thing with setting expectations for the way something is supposed to go. It not only feels like a disappointment, in a different way from ego, it also feels like you did something wrong. And what no one tells you is that you created a future in your head that was built by the version of you that didn't live it yet. You didn't know a global pandemic was going to change everything, or that the creation of AI was going to make entry-level jobs harder to come by, or that we'd enter into another war. The most important thing you could learn for yourself under this level of expectation is the ability to update and adapt to the plan as more information unfolds. Which is why expecting a certain outcome prevents you from wanting to take steps forward. It's as though you essentially expect yourself to step right into the end goal. That your first job has to be the job. Your first apartment has to be the apartment. Your first relationship has to be the relationship. That every move you make has to be a direct reflection of where you are trying to end up. And when the available option does not match the end goal, you dismiss it entirely. But your first step does not have to be your best step or your final step. It's why it's not your forever, it's your for now. Even when the for now looks nothing like you thought it would. Hopefully, by now, you're seeing how the 3 parts of the stepping stone process are overlapping. Because what you thought your journey would look like stems from information and inputs you're receiving from other people. By observing how they're living their life and how you're living yours by comparison. So far, I've talked to you about ego and expectations and how those are largely going to be your internal battles. Comparison, on the other hand, invites the entire outside world into your head to help you form an opinion around your life, warranted or not. Social media puts this comparison trap on steroids, especially in your 20s, because everyone is off doing different things on different timelines, and it's incredibly visible for you to witness. It's all happening on your phone, constantly and in real time, and it leaves you thinking, how come they have it easier? How come they didn't have to take these smaller steps? How come they just got their adult life handed to them and mine is filled with setback after setback? When what you don't realize, as the thoughts come rushing through your brain, is that you are comparing your behind the scenes with their highlight reel, where unless you know the ins and outs of this person's life, you're going to have no idea what their stepping stones look like. The job rejections, the first date failures, the crying on the bedroom floor every Saturday for an entire summer. And yes, that one is from personal experience. All you see is the destination and assume they got in the fast pass lane to skipping the journey comprised of these stepping stones. My TEDx talk, You're Not Special, You're Just Adulting, linked in the show notes for you to watch, talks about this exact thing and how it's plaguing this generation of 20-somethings. So be sure to check that out if you haven't, because it's right there for you to go click on. But all in all, the comparison game is a losing battle to your own life. The only way out is to remain focused on what you're doing, regardless of what other people have to say or what other people are doing or not doing. Do you honestly think I would be here 3 years into a podcast, 5 years into coaching, and a TEDx speaker if I followed what everyone else was doing or saying? No, I wouldn't be. When you learn to trust yourself, you win the comparison game. Until it creeps back in with another area of your life, and then that process repeats itself of learning to stay focused on you. So, the next time you feel that comparison show up, instead of letting it make you feel behind or failing, why don't you use it as proof of possibility? Because 9 times out of 10, the answer points directly back to something you want for yourself. So you get to choose to use it as direction for where you want to set your next goal, and not as evidence that they're better than you or you're doing something wrong, or it's not possible for you. And now that you know all 3 parts that get in the way of your stepping stones, and reminder that it's not forever, it's for now, let's shift into how you can use proof in your life right now to accept where you are while encouraging you to take action to move you forward. It's something I always love to do. And here's how it works. Take your current life and rewind to how you even got here. For example, without going into extreme details, I moved to Charlotte to pursue my own business, but none of that would have been possible if I hadn't sought out a personal training certification and found my first passion that didn't include corporate. That certification wouldn't have come into my mind if I didn't spend a month unemployed and doing nothing during the pandemic and losing my mind. The unemployment wouldn't have come if I didn't say yes to the worst job ever for me. Accepting my first full job was a stepping stone I didn't know I was taking towards self-employment, something that was nowhere near my original 5-year plan. All I knew was that it was my starting point to get my foot in the door in the interior design world. That was it. And it led me to everything I have now. If you zoom out far enough in your life, you will also start to see how almost every single thing that has happened, including the setbacks, were moving you towards right here, right now. Because there is always going to be value in the now, whether you like the now or not. Living with your parents is valuable in setting you up to financially take care of yourself in a few years. Taking the job that feels beneath you is teaching you to show up even when you don't feel like it. Being in a bad relationship is showing you everything you want in a partner that this person isn't giving you. The value is always there. You just have to be willing to look for it instead of looking past it to the final destination. And the last thing I'll say for when you're really pissed off in the now and definitely don't want this to be your forever is to go ahead and give yourself another timeline. Decide how long you are willing to stay on this stepping stone and what the next stone needs to look like before you can move on. The dollar amount, the percentage of healthy days in a given week, the time to set up your resume appropriately. Give yourself something to work towards so the for now feels purposeful and not just like a waiting game. And remember, this is not your forever if you don't want it to be. And that is exactly how I'm going to close out this episode. So, thank you for listening to another episode of How to 20-something. If you liked what you heard, learned something new, or know someone who needs to hear this little reminder, then you know the drill. Please share this episode, send it to a friend, post it on social media. Just do something that helps me reach all the 20-somethings navigating the most difficult decade of their life, and that I'm the coach to help them through it. So as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.